The U.S. government is expanding its enforcement of the Trump-era Remain in Mexico policy along the San Diego border. Under the policy, asylum seekers are forced to stay in Mexico while U.S. immigration courts review their claims. On Monday, 36 asylum seekers were brought back to the U.S. for hearings in El Paso, Texas. It's the first series of cases to be heard since a federal appeals court judge reinstated the program last month. Originally, the ruling focused only on migrants looking to enter the U.S. through El Paso. President Biden tried ending the program soon after taking office. He is now asking the Supreme Court to intervene in hopes of ending the controversial policy once and for all. For more on this, I want to bring in CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez. Hi there, Camilo. So what does the expansion of the Remain in Mexico policy mean for migrants looking to seek asylum in the U.S.?
Hi, Elaine. Happy New Year. So far, the court-mandated revival of the so-called Remain in Mexico border policy has been limited both geographically but also in terms of the number of asylum seekers that have been enrolled in the program. So far, more than 200 adult migrants have been sent back to Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, after being processed in the El Paso sector of the Texas border with Mexico. And these asylum seekers have been instructed to wait there until an immigration judge here in the U.S. is ready to hear their case. But as you mentioned, yesterday, the Department of Homeland Security expanded this policy to California in the San Diego and Tijuana sector, and we expect the department to continue to expand this program throughout the entire U.S.-Mexico border to comply again with this federal court ruling. And again, I should really reiterate, Elaine, that the Biden administration has said that it is compelled by a court order that stemmed from a lawsuit filed by Republican officials in Texas and Missouri who convinced a federal judge back in August to force the administration to reinstate this Trump-era policy. It is also appealing this court ruling and actually asked the Supreme Court last week to intervene to try to end this border program once and for all. But it has to comply with this court order in the meantime.
So, Camilo, are the changes that the Biden administration making primarily consisting of just the expansion as this policy remains in effect?
That's an incredibly important question. The Mexican government, as part of negotiations over this policy, asked the U.S., or actually demanded that the U.S. make several changes to the new iteration of this program. The U.S. government is now asking asylum seekers whether they fear returning to Mexico before sending them there. Under the Trump administration, Elaine, the U.S. officials at the border had to wait until migrants affirmatively stated that they fear being harmed in Mexico in order to refer them to an interview with an asylum officer. So that is an important change. The U.S. government, Elaine, is also offering these migrants COVID-19 vaccination before sending them to Mexico. And it also has said that it will try to transport migrants away from areas of Mexico plagued by insecurity and rampant cartel violence, because some of these areas in northern Mexico have level 4 travel warnings by the U.S. State Department because of rampant and widespread cartel violence and kidnappings. So these are some significant changes that the Biden administration has made to this program, but they have not reassured advocates for asylum seekers who believe that this policy not only tramples on the due process of asylum seekers, but places them in harm's way in Mexico.
Well, the U.S. has returned more than 200 migrants to Mexico since the policy was reinstated last month. As we mentioned, 36 asylum seekers appeared in an El Paso courtroom for the hearings. What more can you tell us about this process, and do we have any update on how the proceedings went?
Yes, this was the first group of asylum seekers to attend court hearings under the new iteration of this program, Elaine. They will now have their cases adjudicated by U.S. immigration judges in the El Paso courtroom. And one key lingering question for us to monitor, Elaine, is access to counsel. This was a notable challenge during the Trump administration. Most asylum seekers went unrepresented to their court hearings during the Trump administration, and the vast majority lost their asylum cases because winning an asylum case usually requires a U.S.-based lawyer, but asylum seekers in Mexico often find it difficult to find U.S.-based lawyers, rather, that are willing to take their cases. And one key dynamic at play here is that many of these lawyers are now refusing to collaborate with the administration and to represent these folks because they say that they do not want to be complicit in the revival of this policy, which they believe is illegal and places migrants in harm's way. So that is a key dynamic that I think we should monitor, whether lawyers for asylum seekers, rather, will work with the administration to represent these asylum seekers.
Yeah, I know you'll continue to watch that. Meantime, the number of unaccompanied minors in HHS custody fell below 10,000 for the first time since March. As many as 22,000 children were sheltered in emergency housing sites across the U.S. last April. How significant is this change, and what does it mean for the Biden administration's reunification efforts?
Yeah, the Biden administration, Elaine, has certainly made substantial progress in expediting the processing of migrant children who arrive at the border without their parents or legal guardians. As you may recall, back in the spring, we saw Border Patrol stations become severely overcrowded with unaccompanied minors and families with children. But the Department of Health and Human Services set up these makeshift emergency housing sites to expedite the processing of these children, and after weeks, was able to reduce the dangerous overcrowding inside Border Patrol facilities. Now the number of unaccompanied children in U.S. custody has plummeted below 10,000 for the first time since March, which is a notable difference. And the number of children arriving alone at the U.S.-Mexico border has also declined since the summer. But this could quickly change this year, Elaine, because we know that border apprehensions tend to increase in the spring of every year. And we know that the Department of Health and Human Services is actually considering opening 2 emergency housing facilities in North Carolina and New Mexico if shelter bed space is again depleted this year.
Well, some Republicans are already vowing to impeach President Biden over his administration's immigration policies. Camilo, what specific parts of the president's agenda could we see under fire if the GOP wins back the House in the upcoming midterms?
Yeah, I think the previous years in U.S. immigration policy have shown us that the executive branch has some pretty sweeping power over this issue and can take significant unilateral actions, especially at the U.S.-Mexico border. We saw the Trump administration institute several policies, including the Remain in Mexico program, to deter migrants from coming here. The Biden administration has also taken unilateral action to reverse some of these policies and to implement its own, including on legal immigration. But Congress does have power over federal budgets and can limit federal spending to federal agencies like the Department of Homeland Security to try to force some changes in policy. It could make some spending bills and some funding condition on increased immigration enforcement and the construction of border barriers, for example, Elaine. So that will be something key for us to watch. But I think the biggest political test and challenge potentially for the Biden administration this year will continue to be conservative states like Texas, which have already shown to have a successful strategy in filing lawsuits against many of the Biden administration's key immigration policies. Texas has already blocked the Biden administration's 100-day moratorium on deportations. It initially got a judge in Texas to block rules that limited who ICE agents could arrest and deport. And obviously, they have also been successful in their case over the Remain in Mexico policy and have forced the administration to revive this Trump-era policy, which President Biden has called inhumane and draconian. So we should expect more lawsuits by Texas this year, Elaine.
All right, continues to be a highly charged issue. Camilo Montoya-Galvez. Camilo, great to talk to you again. Happy New Year, and thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Likewise.